नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। निखिल विश्व विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। निखिल विश्व विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। निखिल विश्व विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्ति विज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। निखिल विश्व विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विश्व महाभागवत श्लोकोक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल विश्व श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल विश्व वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप गौरिया गुरु वार्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पददास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नामचय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंज श्यामा कुंज की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री महेश पंडित की जय। तदीय शुभ तिरुभाव तिथि की जय। श्री उदाहरण दत्त ठाकुर की जय। तदीय शुभ आविर्भाव तिथि की जय। श्री ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Oops, wrong one. Where am I? I'm trying to bring up the Mangala chart. Okay. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namaha. Guruve gaurachandraya radhikaya tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna bhaktaya Tara bhaktaya namo namaha. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipaya no viraha katara ajuhavo putreti tanmayataya taravo binedustam sarvabhuta hridaya munimanatosmi. Narayanam namaskrityam narang chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shinvatang Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vedhanoti Suritsatam. Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai vasmi, na jivami tvaya vina, iti vigyaya radhe tvam, nayamang charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay, kshiptastakama ditarangamade, kripa mai tvam sharanam prapana, Vrinde namaste charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right. Sorry for starting so late today. I was planning on being 10 minutes late, and just as I was all set up and just about to start, all of a sudden I had to use the bathroom and stuff. And so now we're starting 30 minutes late. So it'll just be a 30-minute reading today, just a quick reading. All right. So just a very quick recap. This is just one paragraph. So, once the four Kumāras had gone to Vaikuntha, the eternal abode of Lord Vishnu. The residents of Vaikuntha travel in gem-studded golden airplanes along with their consorts, absorbed in glorification of the Lord Hari, with no desire in their personal enjoyment. Even the birds and plants of Vaikuntha are conscious of loving service to the Lord and encourage others in their services without envy. The Kumāras wished to see the Lord of Vaikuntha. They crossed 6 gates to the Vaikuntha residence of the Lord without any obstruction. When they reached the 7th gate, they were blocked by Jaya and Vijay, the doorkeepers. The Kumāras were somewhat agitated and spoke thus: "How is it that you two have such discordant mentality of suspecting others? Where is the possibility of an enemy coming here in Vaikuntha? The apt punishment for you impostors is to go to the material worlds filled with vices." Jaya and Vijay fell at the feet of the Kumāras and prayed that they never forget the Lord. Seeing their humility, the Kumāras felt repentant. That's where we are. So, Bhuyaragoni Bhagavad Bir Akari Dando Yono Hareta Surahelanam Apyashesham Mavonutapakalaya Bhagavat Smritigno Moho Bhavet Ihatu no Vrajato Radhoda. After being cursed by the sages, the doorman said, "It is quite apt that you have been punished. It is quite apt that you have punished us for neglecting to respect sages like you. But we pray that due to your compassion at our repentance, the illusion of forgetting the Supreme Personality of Godhead will not come upon us as we go progressively downward." Purport. To a devotee, any punishment is tolerable, but the one which affects forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. The doormen, who were also devotees, could understand the punishment meted out to them, but they were conscious of the great offense they have committed by not allowing the sages to enter Vaikuntha Loka. In the lowest species of life, including the animal species, forgetfulness of the Lord is very prominent. The doormen were aware that they were going to the criminal department of the material world, and they expected that they might go to the lowest species and forget the Supreme Lord. They prayed, therefore, that this might not happen in the lives that they were going to accept because of the curse. In Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, verses 19 and 20, it is said that those who are envious of the Lord and his devotees are thrown into the species of abominable life. Life after life, such fools are unable to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they continue going down and down. Evam tadaiva bhagavan aravinda nabha svanam vibuddha sarati krama marya hridya tasmin yayo paramahangsap mahamuninam anveshaniya charano chalayan sahashri. At that very moment, The Lord, who is called the Padmanabha, because of the lotus grown from his navel, and who is the delight of the righteous, he learned about the insults offered to his own servants to the saints. By his own servants to the saints. Accompanied by his spouse, the goddess of fortune, he went to that. Sorry, guys, I'm having a hard time. He went to the spot on those very feet sought for by the recluses and great sages. Recluses. God, I don't know. Every now and then I have a difficult time reading. I just need to calm down because I was rushing to get ready. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord declares that his devotees cannot be vanquished at any time. The Lord could understand that the quarrel between the doormen and the sages was taking a different turn, and therefore he instantly came out of his place and went to the spot to stop further aggravation, so that his devotees, the doormen, might not be vanquished for good. Tam tvagatam pratihritau paikam swapumbis te chakshataksha vishayan swasamadhi bhagyam hangsa shriyor vyajanayo shiva vayulolach chubrata patra shashike sarashikaram bhum. The sages, headed by Shanak Rishi, saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who is formally visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. As he came forward, accompanied by his own associates bearing all paraphernalia, such as an umbrella and a chamar fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently, like two swans, and due to their favorable breeze, the pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved, like drops of nectar falling from the white full moon, or ice melting due to a gust of wind. Wow, that's very descriptive. The umbrella had. Wow, okay. Purport. In this verse we find the words achaksha vishayan. The Supreme Lord cannot be seen by ordinary eyes, but he now became visible to the eyesight of the Kumāras. Another significant word is samadhi bhagyam. Meditators who are very fortunate can see the Vishnu form of the Lord within their hearts by following the yogic process. But to see him face to face is a different matter. This is only possible for pure devotees. The Kumāras, therefore, upon seeing the Lord coming forward with his associates, who were holding an umbrella and a chamar fan, were struck with wonder that they were seeing the Lord face to face. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that devotees being elevated in love of God always see Shyam Sundar, the personality of Godhead, within their hearts. But when they are mature, the same God is visible before them face to face. For ordinary persons, the Lord is not visible. However, when one can understand the significance of his holy name, and one engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, beginning with the tongue, by chanting and tasting prasad, then gradually the Lord reveals himself. Thus the devotee constantly sees the Lord within his heart, and, in a more mature stage, one can see the same Lord directly, as we see everything else. The whole Dhammadarshtakam is about that, right? First he prays to see the Lord within his heart, but then he's praying, no, I want to see you directly with my eyes. And there's a whole thing in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam about that Param quotes in the Dhammadarshtakam book. Kritsna prasada sumukam sprihaniya dhama snehāvaloka kalaya hridi samsprishantam Shame pratava urasi shobhitaya shriya swash chudamanim sobhagayantam ivatmadishnam. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction, and his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. The Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune, who glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. Thus it appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world. Purport. When the Lord came, he was pleased with everyone. Therefore it is stated here, Kritsna prasada sumukham. The Lord knew that even the offensive doormen were his pure devotees, although by chance they committed an offense at the feet of other devotees. To commit an offense against a devotee is very dangerous in devotional service. Lord Chaitanya therefore said that an offense to a devotee is just like a mad elephant run loose. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it tramples all the plants. Similarly, an offense unto the feet of pure devotee murders one's position in devotional service. Whoa. Sorry. I just like how Srila Prabhupada said, murders one's position in devotional service. On the part of the Lord, there is no offended mood, because he does not accept any offense created by his sincere devotee. But a devotee should be very cautious of committing offenses at the feet of another devotee. The Lord, being equal to all, and being especially inclined to his devotee, looked as mercifully at the offenders as at the offended. This attitude of the Lord was due to his unlimited quantity of transcendental qualities. His cheerful attitude towards the devotees was so pleasing and heart-touching that his very smile was attractive for them. That attraction was glorious, not only for all the higher planets of this material world, but beyond, for the spiritual world also. Generally, a human being has no idea of what the constitutional position is in the higher material planets, which are far better constituted in regard to all paraphernalia. Yet the Vaikuntha planet is so pleasing and so celestial that it is compared to the middle jewel or the locket in a necklace of jewels. In this verse, the words Sprihaniya Dhamma indicate that the Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure, because he has all the transcendental qualities. Although only some of these are aspired, Although only some of these are aspired for by persons who hanker after the pleasure of merging in the impersonal Brahman, there are other aspirants who want to associate with the Lord personally as his servants. The Lord is so kind that he gives shelter to everyone, both impersonalists and devotees. He gives shelter to the impersonalists in his impersonal Brahman effulgence, whereas he gives shelter to the devotees in his personal abodes known as the Vaikuntha Lokas. He is especially inclined to his devotee. He touches the core of the heart of the devotee simply by smiling and glancing over him. The Lord is always served in the Vaikuntha Loka by many hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, as stated by the Brahma Samhita, Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahma Sevyamanam. In this material world, one is glorified if he is favored by a pinch of the goddess of fortune. One is glorified if he is favored even a pinch by the goddess of fortune. So we can simply imagine how glorified is the kingdom of God in the spiritual world, where many hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune engage in the direct service of the Lord. Another feature of this verse is that it openly declares where the Vaikuntha Lokas are situated. They are situated as the summit of all the heavenly planets, which are above the sun globe, at the upper limit of the universe, and are known as Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. The spiritual world is situated beyond the universe. Therefore, it is stated here that the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, is the summit of all planetary systems. Pitam shuke pritu nitam bini visfurantya Kanchali virutaya vanamalaya cha Valgo prakoshta valayan vinita sutangshe Vinyasta hastamitarena dunanamabjam. He was adorned with a girdle that shone brightly on the yellow cloth covering his large hips. He wore a garland of fresh flowers, which was distinguished by humming bees. His lovely wrists were graced with bracelets, and he rested one of his hands on the shoulder of Garuda, his carrier, and twirled a lotus with another hand. Purport. Here is a full description of the personality of Godhead as personally experienced by the sages. The Lord's personal body was covered with yellow robes, and his waist was thin. In Vaikuntha, whenever there is a flower garland on the chest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or any one of his associates, it is described that the humming bees are there. All these features were very beautiful and attractive for the devotees. One of the Lord's hands rested on his carrier, Garuda, and in another hand he twirled a lotus flower. These are personal characteristics of the personality of Godhead, Narayan. Vidukshipan makara kundala mandanarha kandastalo nasamukam manimat kiritam dordanda shanda vivare harata parardya harena kandhara gatena chakostubhena. His countenance was distinguished by cheeks that enhanced the beauty of his alligator-shaped pendants, which outshone lightning. His nose was prominent, and his head was covered with a gem-studded crown. A charming necklace hung between his stout arms, and his neck was adorned with the gem known by the name Kaustuba. Atra pashrishtamiti chotsmitama indiraya swanam dhiya virachitam bahusoštavadhyam mahyam bhavasya bhavatam cha bhajantamangan nemur nirikshana vitripta drisho mudakai. The exquisite beauty of Narayan, being many times magnified by the intelligence of his devotees, was so attractive that it defeated the pride of the goddess of fortune in being the most beautiful. My dear demigods, the Lord who thus manifested himself is worshipable by me, by Lord Shiva, and by all of you. The sages regarded him with unsated eyes and joyously bowed their heads at his lotus feet. Oh yeah, I forgot. This is all Brahma speaking to the demigods. I should have recapped that part as well. Anyhow, purport. The beauty of the Lord was so enchanting that it could not be sufficiently described. The goddess of fortune is supposed to be the most beautiful sight within the spiritual and material creations of the Lord. She has a sense of being the most beautiful, yet her beauty was defeated when the Lord appeared. In other words, the beauty of the goddess of fortune is secondary in the presence of the Lord. In the words of Vaishnava poets, it is said that the Lord's beauty is so enchanting that it defeats hundreds of thousands of cupids. He is therefore called the Madan Mohan. It is also described that the Lord sometimes becomes mad after the beauty of Radharani. Poets describe that under those circumstances, although Lord Krishna is Madan Mohan, he becomes Madan Daha, or enchanted by the beauty of Radharani. Actually, the Lord's beauty is super excellent, surpassing even the beauty of Lakshmi in Vaikuntha. The devotees of the Lord in the Vaikuntha planets want to see the Lord as the most beautiful, but the devotees in Gokul or Krishna Loka want to see Radharani as more beautiful than Krishna. Wow. This is such an interesting place for Srila Prabhupada to The adjustment is that the Lord, I just want to save this spot. The adjustment is that the Lord, being Bhakta Vatsal, or one who wants to please his devotees, assume such features so that the devotees like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other demigods may be pleased. Here also, for the devotee sages, the Kumāras, the Lord appeared in his most beautiful feature, and they continued to see him without satiation and wanted to continue seeing him more and more. Tasyaravinda nayanasya padaravinda kinjalka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu antargata savivarena chakaratesham sankshovamaksharajusham apichitta tanvo. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulasi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet to the personality of Godhead entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. Purport. It appears from this verse that the four Kumāras were impersonalists, or protagonists in the philosophy of monism, becoming one with the Lord. But as soon as they saw the Lord's features, their minds changed. In other words, the impersonalist who feels transcendental pleasure in striving to become one with the Lord is defeated when he sees the beautiful transcendental features of the Lord. Because of the fragrance of his lotus feet, carried by the air and mixed with the aroma of tulasi, their minds changed. Instead of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, they thought it wise to be devotees. Becoming a servitor of the lotus feet of the Lord is better than becoming one with the Lord. Te va amusha vadana sita parma kosham udviksha sundaratara dharakundahasam labdha shisha punaraveksha tadiyamangri dvandvam nakarunamani shayanam nidadhyu. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus, and the Lord's smile appeared to be a blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied, and when they wanted to see him further, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again, and so they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature. Pungsam gatim rigayatam iha yoga margar dhyanaspadam bahumatam nayanabhiramam Pungsnam vapur darshayanam ananya siddhar Utpattikai samagrinan yutam ashtabhogai. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga practice, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary, but factual, as proved by the great sages. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievement, but for others these achievements are not possible in full perfection. Purport. The success of the yoga process is very nicely described here. It is specifically mentioned that the form of the Lord as the four-handed Narayan is the object of meditation for the followers of Yoga Marga. In the modern age, there are many so-called yogis who do not target their meditation on the four-handed Narayan form. Some of them try to meditate on something impersonal or void, but that is not approved by the great yogis who follow the standard method. The real Yoga Marga process is to control the senses, sit in a solitary and sanctified place, and meditate on the four-handed form of Narayan, decorated as described in this chapter as he appeared before the 4 sages. This Narayan form is Krishna's expansion. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement, which is now spreading, is the real topmost process of yoga practice. Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga performance by trained devotional yogis. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, the 8 kinds of yoga perfections are hardly achievable by the common man. But here it is described that the Lord, who appeared before the four sages, is himself full of all 8 of those perfections. The highest yoga marg practice is to concentrate the mind 24 hours a day on Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. The yoga system, as described in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or as recommended in the Patanjali yoga process, is different from the nowadays practice Hatha yoga, as it was generally understood in the Western countries. Real yoga practice is to control the senses, and, after such control is established, to concentrate the mind on the Narayan form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all other Vishnu forms, with 4 hands decorated with conch, lotus, club, and wheel, are plenary expansions of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that one meditate upon the form of the Lord. To practice concentration of the mind, one has to sit with the head and the back in a straight line, and one must practice in a secluded place, sanctified by a sacred atmosphere. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of brahmacharya to strictly live in a life of self-restraint and celibacy. One cannot practice yoga in a congested city, living a life of extravagancy, including unrestricted sex indulgence and adultery of the tongue. Yoga practice necessitates controlling the senses, and the beginning of sense control is control of the tongue. One who can control the tongue can also have control over the other senses. One cannot allow the tongue to take all the kinds of forbidden food and drink, and at the same time advance in the practice of yoga. It is a very regrettable fact that many unauthorized so-called yogis come to the Western countries and exploit people's inclination towards yoga practice. Such unauthorized yogis even dared to say publicly that one can indulge in the habits of drinking and at the same time practice meditation. 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna recommended yoga practice to Arjuna, but Arjuna frankly expressed his inability to follow the stringent rules and regulations of the yoga system. One should be very practical in every field of activities and should not waste his valuable time in practicing useless gymnastic feats in the name of yoga. Real yoga is to search out the 4-handed supersoul within one's heart and see him perpetually in meditation. Such continued meditation is called samadhi, and the object of this meditation is the 4-handed Narayan, when bodily decorations as described in this with bodily decorations as described in this chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. If, however, one wants to meditate upon something void or impersonal, it will take a very long time before he achieves success in yoga practice. We cannot concentrate our mind on something void or impersonal. Real yoga is to fix the mind on the form of the Lord, the 4-handed Narayan, who is sitting in everyone's heart. This is a really long purport. By meditation, one can understand that God is seated within one's heart. Even if one does not know it, God is seated within the heart of everyone. Not only is he seated in the heart of the human being, but he is also within the hearts of cats and dogs. Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of the Lord, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe. Bhagavad Gita 1861. The Ishvar is the supreme controller of the world. The Ishvar, the supreme controller of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he is also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. That is a statement of Ishupanishad. God is present everywhere, and his right, we'll finish after this purport, and his right of proprietorship applies to everything. The feature of the Lord by which he is present everywhere is called Paramatma. Atma means the individual soul, and Paramatma means the individual supersoul. Both Atma and Paramatma are individual persons. The difference between Atma and Paramatma is that Atma, or the soul, is present only in a particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present everywhere. In this connection, the example of the sun is very nice. An individual person may be situated in one place, but the sun, even though a similar individual entity, is present on the head of every individual person. In Bhagavad Gita, this is explained. Therefore, even though the qualities of all entities, including the Lord, are equal, the supersoul is different from the individual soul by quantitative power of expansion. The Lord, or the supersoul, can expand himself into millions of different forms, whereas the individual soul cannot do so. The supersoul, being seated in everyone's heart, can witness everyone's activities, past, present, and future. In the Upanishads, the supersoul is described as being seated with the individual soul as a friend and witness. As a friend, the Lord is always anxious to get back to his friend, the individual soul, and bring him back home, back to Godhead. As a witness, he is the bestower of all benedictions, and he endows each individual with the results of his actions. The supersoul gives the individual soul all facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in this material world. Suffering is a reaction to the living entity's propensity to try to lord it over the material world. But the Lord instructs his friend, the individual soul, who is also his son, to give up all other engagements and simply surrender unto him for perpetual bliss and an eternal life full of knowledge. This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, the most authorized and widely read book on all varieties of yoga. Thus, the last word of Bhagavad Gita is the last word in the perfection of yoga. How long is this purport? Oh my God. Wow. Whoa, it just doesn't end. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize. Anyways. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that a person who is always absorbed in Krishna consciousness is the topmost yogi. What is Krishna consciousness? As the individual soul is present by his consciousness throughout his entire body, so the supersoul, or Paramatma, is present throughout the whole creation by superconsciousness. This superconsciousness energy is imitated by the individual soul, who has limited consciousness. I can understand what is going on with my limited body, but I cannot feel what is going on in another's body. I am present throughout my body. By my consciousness, but my consciousness is not present in another's body. The supersoul, or Paramatma, however, being present everywhere and within everyone, is also conscious of everyone's existence. The theory is that the soul and the supersoul are one. The theory that the soul and the supersoul are one is not acceptable because it is not confirmed by authoritative Vedic literature. The individual soul's consciousness cannot act in superconsciousness. This superconsciousness can be achieved, however, by dovetailing individual consciousness with the consciousness of the Supreme. This dovetailing process is called surrender, or Krishna consciousness. From the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, we learn very clearly that Arjuna, in the beginning, did not want to fight with his brothers and relatives. But after understanding Bhagavad Gita, he dovetailed his consciousness with the superconsciousness of Krishna. He was then in Krishna consciousness. A person in full Krishna consciousness acts by the dictation of Krishna. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, dictation is received through the transparent medium of the spiritual master. When one is sufficiently trained and acts in submissive faith and love for Krishna under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, the dovetailing process becomes more firm and accurate. This stage of devotional service by the devotee in Krishna consciousness is the most perfect stage of the yoga system. At this stage, Krishna, or the supersoul, dictates from within, while from without, the devotee is helped by the spiritual master, who is the bona fide representative of Krishna. From within, he helps the devotee as Chaita, for he is seated within the hearts of everyone. Understanding that God is seated within everyone's heart is not, however, sufficient. One has to be acquainted with God from both within and without, and one must take dictation from within and without to act in Krishna consciousness. This is the highest perfectional stage of the human form of life and the topmost perfection of all yoga. That's really interesting that we must take dictation from within. Wait, what did Srila Prabhupada say? Yeah. This is the highest perfectional stage of the human form of life and the topmost perfection of all yoga. For a perfect yogi, there are 8 kinds of super achievements. One can become lighter than the air. One can be smaller than the atom. One can become bigger than a mountain. One can achieve whatever he desires. One can control like the Lord, and so on. But when one rises to the perfectional stage of receiving dictation from the Lord, that is greater than any stage of material achievements above mentioned. The breathing exercise of the yoga system, which is generally practiced, is just the beginning. Meditation on the Supersoul is just another step forward. But to obtain direct contact with the Supersoul and take dictation from him is the highest perfectional stage. The breathing exercise of meditation practice were very difficult even 5,000 years ago. Otherwise, Arjuna would have not rejected the proposal of Krishna that he adopt this system. This age of Kali is called the fallen age. In this age, people in general are short-living and very slow to understand self-realization or spiritual life. They are mostly unfortunate, and therefore, if someone is a little bit interested in self-realization, he is very likely to be misguided by so many frauds. The only way to realize the perfect stage of yoga is to follow the principles of Bhagavad Gita as practiced by Lord Chaitanya. This is the simplest and highest perfection of yoga practice. Lord Chaitanya demonstrated this Krishna consciousness yoga system in a practical manner simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna as prescribed in the Vedanta, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and many important Puranas. The largest number of Indians follow this yoga process, and in the United States, it is gradually spreading in many cities. It is very easy and practical for this age, especially for those who are serious about success in yoga. No other process of yoga can be successful in this age. The meditation process was possible in the Golden Age, Satya Yuga, because people in that age used to live for hundreds of thousands of years. If one wants success in practical yoga practice, it is advised that he take to the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and he will actually feel himself making progress. In Bhagavad Gita, this practice of Krishna consciousness is prescribed as a Raja Vidya, or the king of all erudition. Those who have taken to this most sublime bhakti yoga system, who practice devotional service and transcendental love of Krishna, can testify to its happy and easy execution. The 4 sages, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumāra, also became attracted by the features of the Lord and the transcendental aroma of the dust of his lotus feet, as already described in verse 43. Okay, we're at the end now. Yoga necessitates controlling the senses, and Bhakti Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is the process of purifying the senses. When the senses are purified, they are automatically controlled. One cannot stop the activities of the senses by artificial means. But if one purifies the senses by engaging in the service of the Lord, the senses not only can be controlled from rubbish engagement, but can be engaged in the Lord's transcendental service as aspired to by the 4 sages Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumāra. Krishna consciousness is not, therefore, a manufactured concoction of the speculative mind. It is the process enjoined in the Bhagavad Gita 9:34. Man mana bhavamar bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Bhagavad Gita 18:65. All right. So I will stop here, and we will begin from verse 46 tomorrow. I meant to read this verse as well, but this purport was really long. But we'll hear the Kumāras' response after the Lord said that to them. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Mishnupar Ashtatarashata Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishto Mishnupar Ashtatarashata Shrimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishto Mishnupar Ashtatarashata Shrimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishto Mishnupar Ashtatarashata Shrimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishto Mishnupar Ashtatarashata Shrimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishto Maha-Bhagavat Srila Vaksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishto Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Nugogoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Pata Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshada Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Chaishla Hairas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala, Gaura Mandala, Braja Mandala, Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishya Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radhakun Shamakun Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Mahesh Pandit Ki Jai. Shri Udharan Datta Thakur Ki Jai. Tadiya Tirobhav Titi Ki Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai, Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha, Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Vyayevacha, Patitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. I know, isn't that beautiful? And it just came from, like, straight from left field. It's like, where did that come from? Yes, okay. Dandavat Pranams Indira Mataji.